to you by Barfoot and Thompson.
On the show today, we are chatting with the fabulous Cillin Hearns about his latest book, Now Lead Others. Welcome to Property Matters. Welcome along to another Monday here on Property Matters, and as you know, every few weeks we like to take a little bit of a switch away from talking investments and property, because we have so many amazing business leaders that tune in and enjoy the show. So it's a chance to chat to some industry experts when it comes to leadership. And who better than the author of First Lead Yourself than the fabulous Cillin Hearns. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Stephen. It's great to be chatting.
It's great to be chatting, and you're down the line in Wellington, is that right?
That's absolutely spot on, yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us for the afternoon. And look, before we sort of even start talking leadership, just tell us a little bit about yourself and your own diverse career.
Yeah, it has been quite diverse. I actually started off my career as a fitness instructor back in Ireland, way back, and then from there moved into IT. So I went back to university and got a computer science degree. Was a computer programmer. Moved into project management. In between there, moved to New Zealand, and then kind of hit a midlife crisis. Start running teams of different sizes and different disciplines and that, and I just moved into coaching and leadership training, and got myself a degree in psychology and several other professionally related qualifications, and I've been doing this for maybe 13 or 14 years now.
Brilliant. Why leadership? Why is the passion in that space?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and there is a passion there. There definitely is, and what I think it comes down to largely is that if I can help a person make a change in their leadership styles, then and it improves them as a leader, it's going to have a knock-on effect for their team. And why I say that is because how we learn to be leaders is through modeling others. And if you've been exposed to a very good leader, you're likely to exhibit the same behaviours and think along the same lines as that leader who's gone before you, which makes you a good leader as well.
Okay. And tell us a little bit about sort of your current, I guess, business practices, because you've got your online coaching platform, Leaders Are Made, plus your results coaching business. So is this sort of the space now enabling anyone anywhere around the country to engage with you?
Yeah, exactly. And I have a lot of clients in Auckland and Christchurch. So I tend to work all over New Zealand. Results coaching focuses primarily on one-on-one coaching from everybody from, whether you're graduate and you're trying to find your feet in your organization all the way up to C-level. I tend to work with the individual rather than a title. We focus on training, so leadership training, performance training, growth mindset, communication, coaching for leaders, all those necessary skills to succeed in an organization. And then I suppose the third thing that I would focus on in the results coaching capacity is team facilitation. So how do we become high-performing teams? The Leaders Are Made is a separate business that I'm involved in, and I run that with my partner, Steve O'Rourke, and that's an online coaching platform that consists of 150 plus videos. They're micro-learning videos, so in duration they last between 6 and 12 minutes, and they're very niched on a particular topic. The topic is broken down into several shorter videos, with the idea being that you listen to a video or two, and then you go and you apply that new learning throughout your day, and then hopefully you build on that through the days and through the weeks.
I like the bite-sized nature of that, because I guess that's one of the hardest things facing our leaders these days, is finding time to sort of step out and learn new skills, brush up on your own leadership while leading a busy team.
Exactly right. And if there's just one area that you want to brush up on, say for example, you've been on the courses, you've been on the courses for communication and difficult conversation, but you're about 5 minutes away from stepping into a really difficult conversation, and you want to quickly brush up You can throw on the videos and get your key talking points.
And I see you have the fabulous Jess Stewart in your team, who's been on the show a number of times as well over the years.
Oh, yes, yeah, the wonderful Jess. Yeah, she's doing great. She's doing great out there. Yeah, she's very popular around New Zealand.
I'm about to hit her up because I've spotted her latest book that's come out as well.
Yeah, with How Her or something. Is that the recent one?
Calm, the one around being calm.
That's right. Yeah, she's a prolific writer. She's doing great stuff.
Now, on this platform, you talk about, so many different areas, but one that caught my attention was about becoming a more effective leader by getting a better night's sleep. Now, that's something I don't think we give enough credit to, but it's so important.
Oh, it's hugely important. When I was when I was building my business all those years ago, I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'd be up burning the midnight oil, and I just felt that I needed to squeeze in every hour of the day. But what I've learned about sleep now is that we absolutely need our 7 to 9 hours to function well. Better decisions, better emotional regulation, better reaction times, just better at being ourselves, ultimately. And when we don't get enough sleep, it starts to tear away at our very fabric. It really does.
And also in here you talk about building a high-performance team. And I was in a meeting today where this was a conversation. What are your top tips and what have you learned through your years of experience in this space?
So one of the primary thing, when you think about a high-performing team, it really comes down to the team themselves and what that looks like for them. We've also got an idea about what that might look like in general. But one of the things that gets in the way is a lack of trust, the lack of ability to hold these deeper, more meaningful conversations amongst ourselves. So Patrick Lencioni has done a lot of research around this stuff, and I talk about Lencioni's work in the book Now Lead Others. And what he has discovered is that whenever he's approached by an organization, and funny enough, whenever I'm approached by an organization, if you roll the clock back about 6 months or 9 months, there's always a common seed that is planted all those months ago that starts to just wear away at the performance of the team. And what it comes down to is a sense of trust amongst the different players, the different members of the team. And when there's no trust or there's the lack of trust, then we can't have the important conversations that we need to be having, because if I don't trust that, if you and I, for example, are having a debate about something and I don't trust that you're not going to hold it against me later on, then I just might stay quiet about the situation and not say what I really, really think. And so what that does is it prevents healthy conflict from occurring. And then when we prevent healthy conflict from occurring, we prevent the best ideas to bubble up to the surface. It's those people with the loudest voice, the biggest personalities that tend to dominate.
Have you found leadership has changed in more recent years? As we all sort of have these hybrid work environments where people are off working from home or part the week. I work in the city and I know how many companies come in on a Tuesday and Wednesday because the traffic and parking's insane, and the rest of the week it's about half. Has leadership changed because of this?
Yeah, I think it how we lead has changed. The leadership principles, I think, remain the same. The key focus areas that I think with hybrid teams, what we need to be focusing on is a sense of a shared understanding of who we are as a team. So because we might not be in the office face-to-face all the time, and if we're on a team, you and I, Stephen, I won't get to know your skills and your capabilities and your knowledge the way I would as if we're working all the time together. And so helping to create a shared understanding amongst the team, so I know who to go to. And, when is Stephen at his best? Does he like to work in the morning or, focus time in the morning or the afternoon? And what's going on for Stephen at home? Does he live in a flat with 3 other people and they're all congregated around the same table, or has he got young kids climbing up all over him and, during meetings and things? So to get an understanding about how you like to work and what your constraints are, both at home and in the office, is really important. We really need to stress these things. Organically, these things would grow into shared understanding if we're around one another, but to do it consciously, I think, is becoming more important. Same with a shared identity as a team. So who we are as a team, what do we stand for, what are our values, how are we going to work together. All these things need to be done quite explicitly. And then, of course, what's our purpose? Why do we come together? What makes us different from another team within the organisation? These things quite explicitly is really, really important when we have hybrid working teams.
What do you say to the leader who says, no, I want my team in here, I don't trust that they're working from home and as effectively? Yet you've got staff that are saying, hey, I'd prefer to be working from home.
Yeah, that's right. And some people are much more, would you say, productive at home. They less distraction and so on and so forth. But other people like to come into the office because they like to separate the home from work. And there's arguments on both sides. My question is, how do you know? How do you know that the person is working or not working, productive or not productive? And so it's important to have structures in place, goals for the team, collective goals for the team that individually alone we can't achieve, right? Because superlative goals will help us pull together as a team, but also goals as individuals, and agreed productivity timelines is also pretty useful as well. Productivity and quality guidelines is pretty useful. So then we have more information, right? And we can make a better decision. But one thing that the research tells us around communication, and I'm going to get you to guess this one, Stephen, in terms of meters, whether it be 2 meters to 100 meters to 500 meters, at what stage does communication significantly drop off in terms of distance in meters? What do you think?
I'm going to say 100 metres.
Actually about 8 metres.
Wow.
I know, right? It's phenomenal. And what it comes down to is the fact, running around in loincloths all those millions of years ago, we were very tribal based, and our little cohorts were relatively small, and our brains are designed for working in these closer quarters where we're always picking up on emotional cues, facial cues, and things like that of the people who we're surrounded by on a frequent basis. And when we're outside of that 8 meter range, it starts to dip at that stage and goes on 10 to 15 minutes. They tend to move outside of our initial, I suppose, tribal sphere, if you like, and they're not. The person isn't top of mind for us anymore. And so, in order to have really good, well communicating teams, it's useful to have us in a working together in the same space as well. So there's pros and cons for it. And of course, if we want to build a team, and especially if there are graduates or new people joining the team, and they have to get up to speed on the cultural knowledge and why we do things around here and how we do things around here, that information is passed much easier in face-to-face.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Now, before we unpack your latest book, tell us about your first book called First Lead Yourself. What was the theory or focus behind that?
Yeah. So people often ask me, they used to ask me, who did you write that book for? Who's your audience? And my answer was always me 20 years ago. It's exactly what I needed. Because when I got my first opportunity as a leader, I was very excited. I wanted to be in a leadership position forever. And when I finally got it, I was so thrilled. But it wasn't long after I started to alienate the team. Just through my behaviour and what I thought leadership was. And so what I lacked at the time was self-awareness and self-accountability. I lacked communication skills, and I lacked the resilience that's required to be a leader, because leadership is tough. It's stressful, and we have to have a lot of resilience to be able to push through the challenges that come with holding a leadership position. And really I was getting into leadership because of the title, and for me and me being, it was ego driven basically. Whereas what I recognized is that you should really only ever be in a leadership position for others. And why I wrote that book, actually the first Lead Yourself was the second book that I had in mind, but I had to write it first. Because if you aren't the type of person that people will follow, you're never truly going to be a leader. You might have a title, but people don't follow titles, they follow people. And so First Lead Yourself is all about helping to create awareness so you can be the best that you can possibly be. We explore our beliefs, what are the things that hold us back, and what are the things that move us forward, what are our strengths and weaknesses. And we explore our values, why we do the things that we do, all that stuff that create a massive awareness about ourselves. And when we start to understand ourselves more, we start to get insights into others as well, which is really useful.
So was the plan always to have the 2 books?
Yeah, there's actually 3.
Oh, what's coming up next?
Well, that's about performing. So how do you perform as a leader in an organisation? And so I'm doing a lot of research around the psychology of performance now at the moment.
Excellent. All right. Well, talk us through this Now Lead Others. And it says practical tools and insights on how to build high-performing teams. Talk us through this journey as someone who's picked up this book. Where do we head?
Yeah, so the second book is, so you're, First Lead Yourself, you're in a position where people will naturally follow you because of who you are and how you operate and the skills that you have. You're very good at communicating, you're pretty resilient in most situations, and now you have an opportunity to build a team. And Now Lead Others, it's a completely different style, completely different format. It's a fictional story around a young man called Nathan who gets his first opportunity to be a leader, and he's very excited. But within 3 months, he starts to alienate the team. A very, very familiar story to me earlier on. And Nathan, he finds himself back in Ireland, to go back to a funeral, and he's catching up with a friend of his before he flies back to New Zealand the night before. And this friend of his, Fionn, is involved in mountain rescue, and they get pulled into a mountain rescue that night. And it's through that experience that Nathan starts to explore what true leadership is, both in theory and practice. And that's what I really wanted to do in this book, in terms of making it really easy to read, because it's a fictional story with leadership lessons throughout. I wanted to be able to explain the theory of leadership and demonstrate how it can be used in practical situations, both in a life-saving situation and also how that might translate to an organisation as well. So that is, in a nutshell, Now Lead Others.
Because I found that quite fascinating compared to other leadership or coaching books, that this one is told through the story or character of Nathan. What made you decide this was a different way of doing it?
It was a challenge that I wanted to set for myself, because the lessons, I teach them every day. So the framing the lessons and how to teach them wasn't a problem. It was the challenge that I set for myself. I wanted to create it in such a way that it's really easy to absorb, as opposed to just your standard leadership book that can sometimes be a little bit dry and hard to read. So that was the challenge I set for myself. And to be honest with you, Stephen, I started writing this book 3 years ago. I set myself a goal of writing 1,000 words a day on the 1st of February all the way through to the 28th, I think it was. And I got 20,000 words in. Wow. And I just looked at it and I thought, this is not right. It's just not landing. The theme wasn't working for me. It was a bit boring, really. And I put it aside, and it was several months later that I kind of clicked in terms of the mountain rescue idea. And once I got that in my mind, everything started to flow.
That's brilliant. What do you want people to take away from the book? If someone gets to the end, what's the review you're hoping they write?
Really, what I'm hoping that they'll take from it is that it was absolutely easy to absorb. It made sense, and that they can apply the stuff straight away. That's really important to me. The practical element of things. If they could do that, that'd be awesome.
Nice. You talk about different leadership styles. You even name book chapters such as the visionary, the coach, the commander. Are there certain styles that you see are better than others, or do you change your style depending on who you're leading, what you're leading? How does that work?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we all tend to have a default style, and that default style is largely developed through modelling the leaders that have gone before us. So when we look at the styles, there's 6 leadership styles. There's the visionary, there's the coaching style, there's the affiliative style, which is the friendly, very good at relationship style, the democratic, the pace setter, and then the commanding or the command and control. Now, my default, unfortunately, was always the command and control style, and being in organisations and working in organisations, that's the style that I'd always been exposed to, and I just thought, hey, that's the way it is, and I was always a very good lieutenant, yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir. And so when I got my opportunity, that's what I kind of defaulted to, even though in theory I knew that I should be doing different things. And this is what was really a really interesting insight for me is, under times of stress, we always go back to what we know. So even if I know the theory about how I should be acting, behaving, thinking, when I get under stress, I just tend to default back to what I know. And so there's an element of relearning there that's required. And when you say, is one style better than the other, the answer is largely no. It really does depend on the context and the team and the maturity of the team and the environment, what's going on in the environment, and where you want to get to. And so the skill is to be able to flex and adapt to meet the needs of whatever is presented to you at the time.
Okay. Now, I did chuckle that you have a chapter called The Millennials.
Yes.
For leaders these days, each generation, and I would never even attempt to get all the Gen X, Gen Y, Z names right, but as a leader of someone, I've led teams for many, many years, there is a shift depending on the generation you're working with. What advice do you have for leaders in this space?
Yeah, that's another really good question. It is tough, right? Because what we're finding is there are different mindsets, and I did a bit of research around this, and what it comes down to is those in their maybe 35 plus years tend to value hard work. And so when it comes to getting into the office early and then, really maybe working through lunchtime or staying that little bit late just to get that report out, that's kind of to be expected of them. They have that self-expectation that they would do that. So they tend to value hard work, whereas millennials tend to value free time over hard work. And so they're not averse to working, but it's got to have a purpose, and I think finding a balance between those people who work too hard and those people who just enjoy the free time is what's important there.
Someone said to me the other day, sort of just looking at their teams that have changed over the years, that there was a time where she used to have to come out of her office and literally shoo people out the door at 5:30 and say, come on guys, you need to head home, call it a day. And she said now it's what she calls the 4:50 pack up, and at 4:50 p.m. she can physically hear drawers closing, people's bags going, and literally by 5 she'll walk out and the floor is empty. And I asked her, is the work any different, less productive and things? She said, probably not, but it is a very different shift. It's very noticeable.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the thing about it is, I mean, back when I was, in my 20s and 30s, it was like a badge of honor to be working in the office at 8 or 9 or 10 or even sometimes 12 o'clock, right? But the productivity, the quality of the work, it just declines. And so sometimes you're better off just packing up, waiting until in the morning, getting a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
And then going at it again the next day.
Absolutely. What do you see are some of the biggest challenges facing our business leaders today?
Yeah. I think a lot of it, especially down here in Wellington, there's a lot of change going on. With the shift in government, there's a massive cultural shift. Whereas before, it could be argued that when Labour was in power, there was a strong focus on permissiveness and culture and making sure that everyone's okay. And that was heavily influenced by the pandemic and all of that. It made sense, of course. And then when National has come on, there's a very different focus, and it's all on productivity and getting down and results and measuring results. And that's a massive shift in mindset, and people are being encouraged to come back into the office when they've created their lifestyle around work, and they're pushing back against that. And it's up to the leaders now to try to find a way of ensuring that we are delivering, which is important. I mean, why else are we in business or doing what we do? We've got to deliver. And ensuring that they create a space or an environment in which people want to be there, and create an environment in which people can thrive and do the best work of their life. And I just want to find that healthy balance for people.
Yeah, it is a challenge, but that probably segues beautifully into my next question, because why do you see leadership coaching as important? I mean, I've had the joy of a fabulous leadership coach and sort of can sing the praises of this, but I'm curious from your end, why do you see leadership coaching as so important?
Well, it changed my life, to be honest with you. Because several years ago, I was lost, right? I was unsure what my next move was going to be. I was unhappy in the role that I was in. I didn't want to bounce around into another career. I wanted to try to find my thing. And I met a lovely woman from Christchurch. Her name is Moira Mallon. And Moira and I were on this large change program. And Moira's from Ireland. I'm from Ireland. And we hit it off, chats over coffee. And what I didn't know, Moira was a coach. And she just had this incredible ability of asking the right questions and not allowing me to brush them off with, my humour and, getting too close now, let's move on. She had a really incredible way of holding that space for the conversation to unfold. And it really helped me tap into what was important to me. And what came out a lot was people. And I bit the bullet and launched into it. And for me, it's been incredibly rewarding in terms of helping people make sometimes really, really significant changes in their lives. And why one-on-one coaching is so effective is because it's completely tailored to the individual. We may want to get to a similar place, but where we're starting from and how we can get there is very, very different. And that's where the coaching can help. And
I love that it's very neutral. I mean, you sit down with someone at work, they're always going to have an opinion on your workplace and everything in that space. But having a coach that's outside of that environment is completely neutral and will often, I guess, challenge your thinking or hold you accountable to some of your thoughts or actions that you agree to do in a different way than if it was a colleague at work. Do you agree?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. There's no agenda except for helping the person find a way forward out of whatever challenge they have. It is, and that's the beauty of it. There's no agenda, there's no bias. It's just being there to help the person as best as possible.
You mentioned you hit it off with this person that you met in Christchurch, how important is it to find the right coach? Because it's not always the first person you meet. And do you have any tips on how someone can go about finding the right coach?
Yeah, it's really, really important, because if there's no rapport there, if there's no real sense of trust there, you're never fully going to open up. You're always going to hold back, and you've really got to have an open relationship and to be honest about the situation and what might be holding you back and what's going on for you. All that stuff is really, really important. So building a sense of rapport with your coach is absolutely essential. How to go about doing that, I always suggest for people who reach out to me is, let's grab a coffee, sit down, and we'll have a chat, just to see if I'm the right coach for you, or are you chatting with other coaches? Make sure you're asking all the questions to make sure that you are comfortable moving forward. It's so essential. And sometimes gender might come into it. So women might prefer a female coach, or men might prefer a male coach, or vice versa. Sometimes it doesn't matter, but sometimes it does.
And they don't have to be in your industry, do they? I mean, that's what I've enjoyed, actually, is having someone from a completely different sort of industry background challenging my thoughts.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that's one of the key differences between a coach and a mentor, in that the coach is pretty much industry agnostic, and their skill is asking the questions to help you find the answers for yourself, whereas a mentor can ask questions but also have that knowledge in terms of how to help you move forward in your career, for example, if that's a challenge. So if I wanted to be a radio presenter, I might reach out to you as a mentor, and you could ask some guiding questions to help me get where I want to be.
In your journey, either leading teams yourself or through the coaching that you've led, what's been one of the biggest obstacles you've had to overcome or guide someone through?
So for me, my biggest obstacle was when leading teams was dealing with the stress associated with it. Knowing when to back off and take care of myself, and when to go again. When we look at performance, this is just when we talk about performance is a combination of stress and rest. Stress and recovery. It's like that. And we look at athletes, high performing athletes, that's exactly how they train. And it's true for us in the executive area as well. We need to have that little bit of downtime so we can be at our best to go forward. For other people, it really, it's quite varied. It's quite varied. Sometimes letting go of those things that made us successful is difficult for people. That whole expression, what got you here won't get you there. Because if I measured my success by producing 10 widgets every week, or 20 widgets in a week, and that was a great week, and now I'm leading a team and no longer am I on the tools and I'm not producing those widgets, then how am I measuring my success? And boy, do I love getting my hands on those widgets. And so sometimes we can hold ourselves back by just not being able to let go and develop those skills that are required for the next level.
We talking to leaders before, and some of the comments they've made too, especially if you're a new leader, is that careful balance between leading and managing a team versus wanting to be everybody's friend. And everyone I've spoken to is like, what's one of your biggest learnings was I didn't quite get that balance right. I wanted to be popular. I wanted people to like me, but then sometimes I actually had to just pull people up or deal with HR issues with them. How do we get that balance right?
Yeah, it's a brilliant question. And I talk about this in my book, right? And that's the whole premise of the book, in that you have Nathan who's down on his luck, who's alienated his team. He's really disillusioned, and then he starts talking to Fionn on this adventure that they're on, and Fionn starts giving him a framework around how to build a high-performing team from scratch. And we use the 6 leadership styles as a guide for that, So we talked about visionary, coaching, the affiliative, the democratic, pace setter, and then the commanding. And if we were to imagine how we might use those in reality, in a practical sense, we'd be aware of them all being on to some degree or another. But when building a team, we would have to start off with the affiliative leadership style, building the relationships, building the trust. Because without trust, nothing else can come from it. Mm. And then once we build that trust on a relational level, then it's about understanding the individual in terms of where they want to get to in their career and how you as a leader can support that and help that. Again, we're going deeper into the relationship. Mm. And then ultimately, we want to start bringing it together as a team, so that's when we might start bringing it to democratic leadership style so that everyone kind of has that voice. And then we look to set a vision and a direction and all that type of thing. But the challenge of being liked is quite a big one out there. And it's less about being liked and more about not being able to manage the conflict or hold difficult conversations, which is a skill in itself. And this is something that I cover a lot in First Lead Yourself in terms of how to hold a difficult conversation. And when you have the skills to do that, it just becomes a conversation. The difficultness falls away, because what makes a difficult conversation difficult?
Yeah. What or who sometimes.
What or who, exactly. And if you've got the skills to be able to respond in a professional way, no matter what's said, then it doesn't become difficult anymore. And, you can hold that space of holding the rapport and the relationship whilst working through the problem.
I'm curious, who's inspired you when you look at leadership? Who's been your inspiration? We've just got a couple of minutes left, and I'm curious.
Yeah. So I've drawn a lot of inspiration from Patrick Lencioni and his work. And but out there in the leadership space, the person who comes to mind is Barack Obama. I love his presence and how he holds himself, and how he just manages himself under pressure. And all the big decisions tend to fall at his feet because everything else has been sorted, right? He's an inspiration to me.
You're not the first person to say that. I haven't yet to wait for someone on the show to say Donald Trump.
No. Well, maybe he'll prove himself this time around.
Everyone deserves a second chance in life. Yeah, absolutely. Finally, just quickly, is there any practical top tip you would give a brand new leader versus an experienced one who's refreshing?
Yeah, so I would say for brand new leaders, your journey has just begun, and there's the element of delivery and whatever, the technical aspect of your role, but then there's also the learning to be a leader as well, and working with peers, and the journey is endless. So get the books, do the courses, put everything you learn into practice, try to figure out your own style based on what you've learned. For people who are a little bit longer in the tooth, refreshers are always good. Look at that self-awareness. When are you thriving? Are you looking after yourself? That's probably the big one for people who've been in it a while. Are you looking after yourself? Do you have the right balance in your life?
Brilliant. Cillin Hearns, thank you so much for chatting. Get out there, people, and get this book, Now Lead Others. Where can people go to track you down and find out more information about your coaching?
So you can find more about me at resultscoaching.co.nz.
Brilliant. And if you look at his photo, you will think you're about to meet Prince Harry lookalike. Have you had that one before?
Many times.
It's brilliant. I think it's the angle of the photo too. It's pretty fantastic. Cillin, thank you so much for giving up so much of your Monday afternoon to chat to me. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you. We'll catch you again next week on Property Matters. Remember, you can email us at any time, questions or any information that you want from our show, propertymatters@barfoot.co.nz. Have a fabulous night. Drive safely. Catch you next week.